I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Lately, I haven't exactly enjoyed Michael Bay's films. I mean, sitting through a full movie's been a struggle for me, and probably for you too. That is until the other day when I stumbled upon Ambulance, and having nothing better to do, I watched the thing. Fate does work in mysterious ways because I actually enjoyed it. Well, most of it. The movie, as the title suggests, is about an ambulance. Well, a high-speed chase in an ambulance, which surprisingly doesn't get old, at least not as quickly as you would think. The film opens with Will, a war veteran, who's looking to raise cash for his wife's medical bills, and since he can't land a job, especially in this fucked up economy, he turns to his adoptive brother Danny, who lets him in on a $32 million bank heist. Okay, fast forward to the bank, and as you'd expect, the whole operation goes tits up. And why? Because a cop's been stalking one of the tellers, I think. Oh, and one of the battle-hardened / experienced bank robbers, Trent, wore sandals to work. Yeah, whatever could go wrong. You know, despite knowing the whole operation is destined to fail, the way this happens is just spectacular. I mean, this guy gets shot in the head, Trent gets run over, and this one just dies on the curb. So shit goes sideways. All the robbers are killed in gory fashion. The two brothers shoot a cop and then hijack an ambulance and take the cop, Zach, and an EMT, Cam, as hostages. And with that, we get to the chase sequence. The director really spares no expense at giving the audience everything they like. Gratuitous violence, heavy property damage, and much more. You know, say what you will about Michael Bay, but the guy knows exactly why people watch his films, and he gives it to them by the truckloads. Now, as the movie progresses, we get some background on the two criminal brothers, and as it turns out, they're not just petty criminals. They come from a bank-robbing dynasty with their father being a notorious criminal.
LT was a legend. Bonafide psychotic, killed 6 bank managers, 2 tellers in the 90s.
So, faced with these facts, you might be wondering, did they not plan for a chase? Did the fact that the police might have helicopters and squad cars looking for a bunch of guys who made away with $36 million not cross their minds? To be fair, there is some talk about a getaway car and releasing the hostages, but that plan is pretty much abandoned immediately the cops show up. But none of that really matters because of how the film handles tension. The build-up and release is just cathartic, like this scene where the robbers are heading into the bank, and as the elevator doors are about to close, an old lady steps in. And it's not just that. There's also the scene where Cam discovers the cop was shot twice, and that one bullet pierced his spleen, and they have to fish it out. So they get on a video call with a bunch of surgeons who explain what needs to happen and how. But as they're conducting the surgery, the guy's spleen ruptures and the laptop shuts off. All these and more are great ways of building and releasing tension, which doesn't make the film super deep or anything, but it does keep the viewer entertained. And the movie is bearable for a couple more minutes as our two anti-heroes make plans with the cartel, the Mexican cartel, by the way, innovation is not at its peak here, to hijack a bunch of ambulances and do a Texas switch on the cops. If you don't know what a Texas switch is, here's Will with an explanation.
Texas switch is like when a terrorist drives under a bridge with one car and they pop out with 5 identical cars.
What I find interesting about this is that Cam, who at some point got hold of a phone, tells the cops where they're going, but leaves out the why. And how were these hostages never frisked? What if they had a gun? Or a chainsaw? Oh wait, they do have a gun. Frisking your hostages is like hostage taking 101. Frisk them to make sure they don't have any communication devices or weapons they may use against you. Fucking armatures. Anyway, they make it under a bridge where they plan on deploying the decoys, and for some unfathomable reason, they paint their ambulance green. Allow me to explain. The whole point of the Texas switch is to confuse the police, forcing them to split their forces, making it easier for you to escape. So why, oh why, would you make your vehicle as visibly different from the other decoys as possible? Is the paint some sort of magical camouflage? Well, it must be because the entire police force seems colorblind. And speaking of the cops, I've got a couple of questions. 1, how come they didn't figure out some decoy ambulances had been deployed? Like 5 ambulances get stolen and nobody connects the dots? And 2, why has this chase gone on for this long? Now, I know you're going to say, it's because they have hostages, you dumbass. But the thing is, they shoot up the ambulance. Like the entire movie is based on the fact that the police want their brother cop alive and well, and thus they have to indulge the bank robbers, but they turn around and shoot up the ambulance like hell. They just decide, fuck that, fuck this, fuck their families, fuck the audience. I mean, is it just me? Or couldn't they just use spike strips to stop the damn thing? Anyway, The police shoot up the ambulance, despite the possibility of hostages being on board, and before you can figure out what just happened, an ambush ensues. A bunch of cops get killed, and so does a cartel member, which infuriates his father, who's called Poppy, by the way, and happens to be the head honcho around these parts. And you can only imagine how tense the situation is when Will and Danny show up to give the man his cut of the pie, and there's a cop in the back. So, Poppy, a man who just watched his son lose his life at the hands of a cop, demands Cam and Zach remain with him, possibly to encounter the same fate, maybe worse. And, of course, Danny is down for this and more, but Will is vehemently against it, and the bond between brothers threatens to tear that is until a couple of seconds later when Poppy makes a comment on how Danny and Will aren't real brothers, so, logically, everyone starts shooting. And remember the not frisking the hostages thing? It backfires, again. Let me take you back towards the beginning. So when they are prepping Zach to get him on a stretcher and then into the ambulance, his partner places the officer's handgun onto the stretcher right before they place Zach on it. Why does he do this? Did he know it was an important plot device that would be needed much later, or was he just high on adrenaline? The answer, I fear, may be lost to time. What isn't, though, is the fact that the gun was used by Cam to, albeit accidentally, shoot Will, which forces Danny to drive to the nearest hospital to save his brother's life, thus initiating the closing sequence. So Danny drives to the hospital and gets surrounded by cops, which results in a standoff. And it's during said standoff that he realizes the person who shot his bro wasn't a random cartel henchman or Zach the Rookie. He proceeds to take the gun and threatens to kill Cam, at which point Will shoots him through the back. Alright, I'm not gonna lie, that ending really got to me. I knew from the beginning Danny was definitely ending up in the morgue, but it never crossed my mind that Will was going to be responsible. And that's one of the things I really enjoyed about this film. I'm not going to lose wit and call it a masterpiece because it's not, but it is entertaining, which is the bare minimum. The characters are okay, somewhat stereotypical, but still alright, and the plot is highly predictable, but still entertaining. What it is that I'm trying to say is that the movie is enjoyable. And with all that, I leave you with this.
Hey, look at me, listen.
I'm the captain now.